Alright, so in this video, what we're going to do is talk about how we're going to add users. I've already got the form hooked up to the API so that whenever I create a new user, it should then successfully create the user, but it's not doing anything yet as far as adding it to our data. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. If I go in here, I say Steve Smith, Steve at test.com. I am the drummer for Journey. All right, and then if I hit submit, we don't see anything right now. We're not handling that. I would expect though that if I refresh, I will see Steve Smith's info. There it is. So it did work. It did save, but we've got to talk about how we're going to actually handle that data. Right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my sign up component, and I've got this on submit function, and so I'm going to post this whole project up on GitHub so that you have access to it, but so that you can kind of dig around in the code. So if some of this doesn't make sense to you, hopefully you can dig around throughout the code base and kind of dissect it a little bit. I would definitely recommend that you go back and watch older videos if some of this stuff looks foreign to you. So on this submit function, we've got this create user, and then we're getting as a callback set user, and inside of that we have access to the user that's being returned from the database. So we could do a thing where, let's say that we create a user, and then as soon as the user is created, then we make another call to the server to get all of the users again. That's not a terrible solution. However, it's not the best solution because it's an extra call to the server that you don't need to do. So instead, what we can do is we can take this user and add it to our list of users that we have in Redux. So what we're going to do is inside of this signup form, we're going to go ahead and connect this to Redux. So as always, import connect from React Redux. Then I'm going to go down here to the bottom of this component. I'm going to say export default connect, wrap the component. Now let's think about what we're doing. We have to ask ourselves, are we getting data or are we posting data? For this signup component, we're getting a response from the server, but what we're wanting to do with that data is actually post it to our Redux store. So that's how we know we want to actually use map dispatch to props. So I'm going to go up here and say const map dispatch to props. That's a function that takes in dispatch. And we need to return an object. And then I'm just going to say, we're going to call this add user. We're going to pass in the user that we get from the server. And then if you remember, we have to have an action, which is an object. And then we need to dispatch that action. And so we're going to say const action. The type is add user. I like to a lot of times just make it the same name as whatever the name of the method is. Add user, and then we're going to pass in the user as well. And then we need to dispatch that action. So I would expect that that would take us here, and now we can go inside of our switch statement and say case add user. In a later video, by the way, we're going to talk about how we can refactor our dispatch to use action creators, which is a little bit better of an approach. So you can go case add user, and we're going to say return object.assign. So again, that's creating a new object, and then we're passing in our old state. And then, actually, before we do that, so here's what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our user and then attach it to this array of users. So what I'm going to do first is say const users equals state.users.slice. And so that's giving me a brand new copy of the array. And then I'm going to say users.push the new user. And then here I can say users. And so actually this isn't going to work because this should be action.user. So I've got my new copy of the array, and then I'm appending to that the user object that's attached to the action. And then now I am updating my users array inside of my Redux state, my reducer state. I would expect that this would work. Now, one other thing real fast before we go too far down this road, whenever I submit, I'm also going to clear out this input form. So we will do that we'll do that right here. We're going to say this.set state, and we're going to just take all of this and pass it in. My prettier is not hooked up right now with the auto indentation. I'm missing that right now. All right, cool. So I think I would expect that this would work. Let's try it out. So if I go Steve Jordan at test.com, I am also a drummer. Here's what I expect. I'm going to submit. These inputs will clear out, and then we'll see him pop up right here. Let's see. Something went wrong. All right, so now we get to debug. Let's check our errors. No errors. We do have the results. Let's check our Redux store. So if we go into Redux, it didn't actually update. So something went wrong here. So now we get to debug. So inside of this sign up, we are connected, I believe. And this is great. You guys are going to get to debug this with me. Probably a lot of you already know what the solution is. You're probably screaming it at me through your computer screen. That's awesome. But it's going to take me just a minute. Let's see. Did I get the name the same? Add user. That looks the same. Add user. Let's make sure that we are inside the right place. Inside the add user case. And we'll console log the action. Let's see what we've got here. So Sam Smith, Sam at test.com, blah. All right. So we're not making it inside. Yeah, we're not making it inside of this user reducer for some reason. What's happening? Oh, because I'm not actually calling it. That would be why. Okay, so set user. This.props.add user. There it is. So now that I'm actually calling the method that we built, it should work. So let's give it another try. So we're going to say Steve Gadd at test.com. I'm another drummer named Steve. All right, so this should work. Submit, scroll down, there it is. All right, it's working now. So it does help when you actually call the methods that you write. And so that's how you can dispatch something to your reducer store without actually having to make another call to fetch all of the new data. That's a really, really efficient way to kind of just make sure that your data is current and up to date while being a little bit more performant because you're not having to hit the server so much. All right, thanks for watching. In the next video, we're going to refactor our uh, dispatch actions and use what's called action creators.